Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Jess and we discuss all things lifestyle, family and coaching. Now on today's video, I decided to make a series of videos talking about my family and I relocating from the UK to Dubai. So these few videos are going to be all about the logistics of that, because when I was looking through YouTube doing my own research, it was really difficult to find videos that were about a family of four or more and what those costs look like. I was finding a lot of content that was for individuals, singles, couples, young people. I like to think I'm a bit young, but probably not really. So just to put a notice out there that I am new to this. I'm new to the whole YouTube world, but I felt like if I've got information and it can help someone else, then I might as well just put it into a video. So let's just crack on with it, because I'm that kind of girl. Let's just get into the details. Now, the order that I'm going to go through things in might be a different order for you depending on what the circumstances is for you relocating. So just take it all with a pinch of salt. I would also like to say that this is my personal experience. I do not claim to have all of the answers at all, and I will put a note down below just to say all of the sort of companies that I mention and all of the forums and stuff that I've kind of looked on that have helped me to get as much information as possible, and so I hope that it's helpful, and leave me any comments or ask me any questions and I will reply to it accordingly. Okay, so number one, the first thing here is circumstance. When you're relocating to Dubai, I know some people go out there and then look for a job while they're already there, and I know that other people go out there for a job. Now, it is currently January 2024. My family and I are relocating over and I have a job out in Dubai. My husband also has his own company in the UK, which he will run remotely from Dubai. So there are a couple of things I'll talk about in terms of logistics with those things as well. Now, my company is organising things for me such as my visa, my health insurance, all this other stuff. But for my family, it doesn't cover them. Now, again, I know everyone has different circumstances. Some people's expat packages are really sexy and they get a whole package for everyone that they know. This isn't like that. And I know that a lot of those packages have kind of been tweaked in more recent years. So it's just important for you to figure out what that is that works for you. Now, with the job, one of the things that we need to think about is the visa process, who sponsors who, what's the easiest way to get that sorted, and I'll come to that shortly. With the job comes a visa, an employment visa. Now, if you have a job out in Dubai, your employer will more than likely sponsor you for your visa, and that means that your visa or your entry into the company is really based on you working for that employer. So they will sponsor your visa and sort out the logistics most of the time, and that would just mean that once your visa comes through, you would be able to then sponsor your family members off of your visa. Now, this is different for men and women, I found out. So this is something that isn't necessarily easy to pick up on when you're just looking online, but is much easier for a man to sponsor the wife and the kids than it is for the woman to sponsor the husband and the kids, because if you are a woman, a wife, sponsoring your husband and kids, you have to earn over a particular threshold, and you have to, tick all of these other boxes in order for that to happen. So just something for you to be mindful of. Look into it and see, because I don't know which way around your particular situation is, but see whether that's going to be worthwhile. In our situation, my husband is going to just set up his company here as well in Dubai as well, and then he can sponsor himself and sponsor the kids as well. Makes life a lot easier. So just be mindful of that. Now, with the visa process, when your visa comes through, you can also get your Emirates ID. Now, you need your Emirates ID in order to actually have a long-term rental. So when you're moving over to Dubai, you're more than likely going to be in short-term accommodation until you're able to get your visa through and your Emirates ID through, in which case you're able to then use that documentation to secure a long-term rental. Now, one of the things I need to mention along with the visa situation is attesting your documents. Now, I didn't even know that this was going to be such a thing, but it actually is a very, very big thing. So if you're a family moving over to Dubai from any country, you need a couple of documents to be attested. And that there's a lot of companies that do it, and I'll put the company that I used in the description. But ultimately, they're going to need to attest your marriage certificate. And one of the loopholes in this, not really a loophole, but one of the things to be mindful of is that your marriage certificate needs to be attested in the country that it was given to you in. So if you got married in Greece and you signed in Greece, you need it to be attested in Greece, and so on and so on and so forth. So even if your marriage certificate is recognised in the UK, like mine is recognised in the UK, but we actually didn't get married in the UK, so I now have to go back to the place where we got married, get it attested in that land, and then bring it over to the UAE. So just a heads up on that. Also, you would need the birth certificates of your children to be attested. Now, it can be the original birth certificate. It can also be the copies that they give you with the original. So it literally says certified copy or something like that on the top of it. That is also fine for you to send to get attested. But you can't have a copy of the copy. I hope that makes sense. You can't have a copy that you've made yourself of the birth certificate. It needs to be the official one. Looks like there's wet ink on there, you know. The real deal. So those need to be attested as well. Now, the other thing that you can get attested is your qualifications. Now, this would only need to be attested if your employer is asking for it. Some employers aren't really that precious about it, but some of them are. So just bear that in mind. And if you do need to get that attested, it will be your highest qualification. So if you have a master's, for example, you would just attest the master's. You wouldn't attest like everything up until that point. So again, I probably wouldn't bother doing that unless you know that you need to do that, because all of these come with a cost. It's roughly about £200-300, I feel like, per attested document. That's the cost that I kind of incurred anyway. So it might be different with different companies, but I use a company that was recommended by some other people in Dubai as well. Now, I want to talk about flights. Now, I wasn't sure about whether you get a one-way ticket when you're moving, whether you get a return flight, you know, what you do about all of these things. And I know that this is a controversial topic, but all in all, we decided to get a one-way ticket. It really came down to cost, because there was no point paying, like, it was actually more expensive to get a return. And I have no plans to return within the next 12 months, and it kind of restricted me to have to return within 12 months. And so I just kind of bought a one-way and did it that way, and then, you know, I'll figure it out from there. But really, it's just about making sure that you do have a visa. I know with the British passport, you have an automatic 30-day visa in Dubai. So it gives you time to sort out your documents and things like that. The turnaround time for the visas and the documents and things are usually about 2 weeks. So it should be fine for you to get to Dubai on your automatic visa that you have if you have a British passport. Different entry times for different countries, by the way, so do check that on your passport, and then you can sort out everything once you're there and still be within the time frame. It is important to note though that if you stay beyond 30 days, you start to get a daily charge for overstaying, you know, within the country. You can actually go to the official offices and get an extension, so that may be something that you might want to look into as well. I'm not sure about the ins and outs of that, but I know that that's a possibility. Now, with the flights, you might want to think about your general travel insurance. Now, I have been told by a few people, and so I did, just get travel insurance for like a month or so, just to give you some time to sort out your healthcare and which provider you want to choose out there. And, you know, there's so many logistics to think about before you actually get to Dubai that you kind of want to make sure that you have the time to make the right decision for healthcare providers. So having sufficient travel insurance while you're flying over for a few weeks, just to give you time to do that, that's something that was recommended to me, and that is exactly what I have done. Now, shipping. Okay, shipping is an interesting one, because I was really nervous and confused about, one, how much this would actually cost, okay, because I just figured shipping is going to cost a bomb. And also just, you know, what do they do? When would I ship my stuff? Would I then be sleeping here on the floor with nothing in the house? I don't know. But the mind goes to crazy places. So shipping. Now, we have used a shipping company called PSS Removals. Again, I'll put it in the description below. But what they effectively do is come to your house. Well, they do a video call with you first of all, and you kind of go around on the app, on the video call, showing them everything that you're going to ship. And if you have a garage and things like that and things in there that you want to ship, then you will need to sort of be showing them that as well. So any bicycles, you know, storage, beds, chest of drawers, whatever you choose to take, really. Now, with this company, you pay for the space you use. So it's not just them giving you a flat rate regardless of what you're shipping. You pay for what you use. Now, we are going to actually just sell some of our bigger items here in the UK and just use some of that money to get our own things once we get there, once we figure out the house we're in and things like that, because it is just such a faff to like not to get into a house in Dubai and then not have any furniture until our shipping arrives and not be able to buy any. That's just too much of a faff for us. So basically we're going to get all those things in Dubai and then just ship over clothes, books, toys, bikes, kitchen appliances, you know, all of that kind of stuff instead. So our shipping was quite light. Now, we're in a 3-bedroom house, and granted, we're not taking all of our furniture, but for like basics and you know, the things that I've listed already, our quote was about £1,600. And with that as well, they come to your house and they do all of the packing for you. So, you know, they would pack all the things inside your wardrobes, or all the things in chest of drawers, or whatever it is that you're taking, whatever. They would pack everything and then ship it over and then do the same on the other side. So I just feel like that's a cracking deal. And other people might have got better deals, I don't know, but I feel like that's a cracking deal. So yeah, with the removals, that's what happened. So they are coming to collect the things just a couple of days before we leave the UK. And so during that couple of days, it's up to you to figure out whether you just want to stay in the house with like a duvet and a pillow on the floor. Might not be best for the kids. Kids might want to do sleepover somewhere. Or you want to just get a hotel near the airport for a night or so, something like that. But it all depends on cost. I know all of this does come down to cost at the end of the day, and there's a lot of outlay up front when you're moving overseas. So it might just be good to consider that. Is a really big one. Okay, so schools was a minefield for me, because that for me is like the most important thing. I plan to sort of do everything else around the school that we choose for the boys. So I wanted the school to be something that we're really happy with. It's the best school that we could get at the most affordable price, and then we'll work all of our logistics, where we're going to live and everything around the school. And that's the way around I wanted to do it, because the school for me was more important. And obviously keeping that to a certain budget, the best education possible for that budget, is a tricky thing to try and figure out when you're not from that country. So one of the things I will say is the KHDA website is the official website for all of the schools in the UAE. And it's a really great tool, because actually you can just shortlist schools in Dubai. So you can just literally put Dubai and then what age group, you know, what year group you're looking for. And then any other sort of filters that you want to put in there, and then it will literally give you a list of all the schools that fall into that category. So I did that based on very good schools or outstanding schools, primary schools, because my kids are primary school age, in Dubai, for example. And yeah, went on there. So when I got the results from that, I then sort of like cross-check them, looking at online reviews, whether it's Google reviews, Trustpilot reviews, whatever reviews. I really want to know what the people are saying, not just what the school's saying, but what the parents are saying about their experience in the schools. It's important for me, for my kids to obviously grow like academically and do really well, but also just be in an environment that's healthy and happy. I just don't want them to be, you know, in any sort of weird, terrible environment, because, you know, kids will be kids. So yeah, so that was important for me. So I did cross-check all of those KHDA reviews and things with like real people's reviews, and they do have real people's reviews on there, but I also wanted something separate, because I'm just that kind of person. So yeah, that turned out really good. Now we made the mistake, I would say, of applying, because a lot of them say like apply here and and it's really easy and you just apply. And what we ended up doing is basically applying for schools. And when you apply for a place for your child, bear in mind that you have to pay 500 AED along with the application in order for the application to even be sort of processed, right? So depending on how many children you have, that can continue to stack up. So 500 AED is about 100 and so odd pounds. And they'll take that amount off of your first term fees, by the way. But you will have to, sorry, you will have to pay that when you put in your application. So, don't know what's happening with my voice, sorry. So you will have to pay that with your application. So I made the mistake of applying, doing that online, paying the fee. And then when I finally get to speak to someone, they say, oh no, there are no places right now. And then I have to go through the whole process of trying to get a refund, which is terrible. And it's not really clear. So having learned that lesson, I then decided to call around, speak to all of the people in the schools, which seems logical, but obviously I wasn't in the best frame of mind. Call around, speak to the admissions team and see if there are spaces before starting the admissions process. So hopefully this saves someone from making the same mistake that I did. So one of my children is 5 and the other one, well, was 6, just turned 7 yesterday. But so 5 and 6 respectively at the time that we did these assessments. And my 6-year-old had to do some like 4 different virtual exams. And when I say exams, it was like tests on maths and English and, you know, solving complex problems and things like that, shapes, patterns, all of that kind of stuff, kind of like those tests that they now have you do when you're applying for certain roles and they want to see how competent you are in certain things. So my 6-year-old had that. My 5-year-old had a more relaxed version of that with an actual human being that was asking questions or showing him cards with words on and things like that, and seeing, just, I guess they're trying to assess the level that they're at. So that was all able to happen virtually, and pretty much gone through a majority of that process without even stepping foot in Dubai, which is really helpful. And we want to line everything up so that the kids can start school as soon as we arrive. So I know that you can actually sort out admissions and have it all sorted for your kids to start once you set foot in Dubai. I should note, actually, side note, that some companies with your visa won't start processing it until you actually land in Dubai. I think they may have been burnt a few times before where people didn't end up coming and they started the process. So just as an FYI, that might also be a thing. So accommodation. Okay, so when you're relocating from the UK to Dubai or from anywhere to Dubai, you would have to be in short-term accommodation initially in order for you to wait for your visa and your Emirates ID to come through. So we have rented an Airbnb for 6 weeks, and that was just to give us the breathing space to not be so tight and try to turn everything around like and also not be in a place that means that we have to move again to another place because our documents aren't ready yet. So we just kind of gave ourselves 6 weeks in an Airbnb whilst all of our documents are processed. Now, once you get your Emirates ID and your visa through, like I said earlier, you will then be able to have the documentation you need to get a long-term rental in Dubai. So short-term rentals are obviously really high, really expensive. They are anywhere in the world. I'm in the real estate world here in the UK and will be in the real estate world in Dubai as well. And I know that it costs a pretty penny. So in terms of outlay of upfront costs, that's something to just, you don't tend to think about, but you really need to think about because it's quite a big chunk of money. Roughly, I feel like most things that are like 2 beds, obviously dependent on the area that you choose, but it's about £1,000 a week, roughly. On average, again, look, you might find a cheaper deal, you might find a more expensive one, all depends on how deep your pockets are, but it's roughly about £1,000 a week for like a decent 2-bed, you know, in a local sort of place, which we decided to stay in JBC for our Airbnb because it's just easier to get literally everywhere. And then when we're doing our house hunting and stuff like that, we'll be able to easily get around from there. Now, one of the things to note with long-term lets is that you would take an annual contract and your rent is paid in installments. So in the UK, we pay rent monthly. In the UAE, it's not that way. You pay it either quarterly or biannually or annually. So if you decide to pay your rent in advance for the year, then you can negotiate a pretty good deal on that. I know that some people have paid the year in advance and then got 2 months off the rent, as an example. I'm not saying that happens everywhere, but some people have made that happen. So I think depending on how, again, deep your pockets are in the beginning is how you can sort of set yourself up. It would obviously be nice to have rent paid for the whole year so you don't have to worry about it and you can just settle in, but that's obviously not going to be possible for everyone. So just bear that in mind. The last thing I want to mention in terms of accommodation is that rent is paid in checks, is actually paid by check. In the UK, I feel like checks are obsolete now, like we barely use them. I don't know anyone who still uses a check. HMRC maybe if there's a rebate, but I don't really know that many people that use check. But in Dubai you use checks to pay your rent. So even when I've spoken about paying your rent annually in advance, you can give them the checks all in advance, but they wouldn't necessarily cash them until whenever. So, you know, if you're paying by 4 checks, you know, every quarter, you can give them all the 4 checks up front, but wouldn't be cashed until, you know, the date it's going to be cashed. So yes, but it's all done in checks, and you have to make sure your signature is on point, because if your signature isn't on point and it bounces back, then you get fined. So just be aware of all of that stuff. Checks, signature, all above board. Okay, so what are you going to do with your UK phone line? Because that's something that I was like, I don't want to lose all my contacts and I don't really know which way around I want to do all of these things in. But I decided to, I'm with EE. I don't advocate for any provider, I've just been with EE. So I decided to stay with them and get a really cheap contract, unlimited calls, unlimited texts or whatever, 1 gig of data. It's about £7 a month. And that's it, basically, just to keep that line open. Now, what I will do is get an eSIM, a Virgin SIM, in Dubai, because I've, you know, done all the homework, being the geek that I am. So I will get an eSIM for my Dubai number so that I can have both SIM cards on one phone. Now, I looked around at buying a new handset that can take 2 physical SIM cards and yada, 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 but I don't necessarily need that. I'm not going to be living on both time zones the whole time. It's just that I want to sort of ease myself into you know, the change. So I'm going to keep the UK number at least for the next 12 months and keep everything the same with that. And as long as I'm on Wi-Fi in the UAE, then it won't access any of my data on that phone, so I won't be charged anything. I have also put a cap on the data or on that phone so that it can't go over £10, for example. So that's kind of how I've chosen to set up my mobile phone stuff, keeping a UK number. This might be irrelevant for you because you might be, you know, chucking it out and just starting again, which is also great. I should say that the eSIMs are kind of just like downloaded into the settings on your phone. So again, it's not a physical sort of SIM card. It is just downloaded into the settings on your phone and is done. It's kind of like saying it's done in the cloud, but you know what I mean? It's done that way. So it's a good option. You might want to do an eSIM for your UK one and then get a physical SIM for your Dubai one. It depends on what you want to do. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about in this video is bank accounts, okay? So I obviously have bank accounts here, and with my company, I will get, you know, have a bank account in the UAE, which is a UAE bank, okay? Now, I know that UAE banks don't have the same protections that UK banks do. So if your bank closes down and dissolves into thin air, then that's your money, you know, gone. So I don't plan on keeping like all of my money or a majority of my money in that account at all times. I obviously would want to spread that across different accounts that I have. So I'm not planning on closing all of my UK accounts either. I will still be using some of them to transfer money into. So I have actually opened a Wise account, Wise, which used to be TransferWise. So that's a global money account in a sense. So you can basically transfer money from all different types of countries and currencies into that account, and they give you either a physical card or an e-card. So the physical card will literally be a physical card that you can use, and you can withdraw money like up to twice a month in the currency in the country you're in, right? So it's a really good universal card to have. I think it was about £12, I think, for that card. Or you can just get an e-card, which means it's free, you don't pay anything, and it can also be on your Google wallets, your Apple wallet, and all of that, which the physical one can too. But it just means that you don't get the withdrawing cash sort of option on the e-card, right? So I decided to open a Wise account, so because it's so much cheaper, the transfer rates on money, so that whatever I get paid into my UAE account, I can send some of it into my Wise account and funnel it to the UK. So just to know that that's what I've decided to do. Doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do, but that is it. So I hope that this has been helpful. I know it's been a lot of information and yet maybe not as much information, I don't know. So please drop a comment, ask me any questions. If you want me to go into anything else in detail, I absolutely will. I will do a video also about why we chose to leave the UK, because I think that's important to talk about as well for those of you that are interested. But this video is primarily just to give you the logistics of the things that you need to know. So I hope it's been really helpful. Like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.